In this video, I'm going to teach you how to direct a viewer's attention anywhere you want it to go in a photo. Our ability to perceive depth relies more on light and dark tones rather than color itself. So our depth perception doesn't really see colors. Colors do play a role though. They evoke feelings more than anything. So if you take red, for instance, in nature, that often means danger or trying to attract a mate. So if you adjust tones in an image to add in contrast, to darken the shadows and brighten the highlights, that will give you control over where the viewer's eye is drawn to. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to brighten specific areas to naturally attract attention to them. So if you look at the image here, this is the before and this is the after, and you can see exactly what that is doing there. So by adding that contrast, I have highlighted certain areas and darkened certain areas just to allow the eye to flow a little bit better. So I'm going to delete these and I'm going to walk you through the process. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is, once you've opened up your layers panels, come down to the bottom here, and we want to desaturate the image. There's a couple of ways you can do that. Easiest way is just to come up to here where it says hue and saturation and just drop the saturation right down. Okay, the next thing we want to do is come down to the bottom here and we want to come up and make a curves adjustment. So I'm going to click in the middle and I'm just going to push this up to about there. That looks good. You can come back and change that later on, so it's not an issue. Come back down to the bottom again and make another curves adjustment. And then this time we're just going to pull this down. So you can label these if you want to. You can label them dodge and burn. You can call them dark and light if you want to. There we go. That just keeps things simple. So you can click on the little X there and it will get rid of it. So the next thing we want to do is we want to invert these selections. So press Control or Command I while you're on that mask, on both of them there. And now what we need to do is come over and get our brush tool. Come up to the top, make sure the hardness is set to 0, and you want the flow around 50% to start with. Now you're going to be adjusting that throughout. You want to make sure that your foreground color is set to white. If you don't know how to do that, then you can just press X on the keyboard and that will switch between the two, or you can double click on the actual color there and just change it. That's okay. What I want to do is zoom in, and when you're doing this, I want you to really take your time. This is not a quick process. Now I'm going to do this really quick because I don't want you sitting in front of your computer screen watching me do this for the next hour. But you can see what I'm doing is I'm coming in and I'm just grabbing these light areas here, these details. Now when you're doing this, you want to be changing the brush size as well, so you can use the brackets keys on your keyboard just to increase that brush size, and that's going to give you a lot more control. Now what we want to think about is when we're looking at an image, where as a viewer we're pulled into. So usually we're going to be down here because we are left eye biased, so we will be looking here first, and then we want to pull the eye up. So you can see there's a natural shape already happening with the way that the fish are anyway. So you can see what I'm doing is I'm highlighting areas I want the viewer's eye to travel. So I'm just brightening them areas that I want to grab attention. So you can see we want it to come back up into the tail up there. And then I want this area to be brighter than normal and what it already is, because I want the eye to continue across up here. Now these points here are really interesting because we're lucky because they are naturally bright anyway, but what that means is that gives us a really good point at which we can just grab that viewer's attention, pull it round. So we could also use some of these areas here to pull the eye up as well. I'm going to just increase the flow a little bit now and just highlight some of these areas here because this is naturally going to pull the viewer's eye in up there. Now, like I said in the beginning, you can do a much better job than what I'm doing. This is a really dodgy edit but you get the idea. So moving on to the next one then, we've got another point here, which is really good, and these areas here. So again, we're just thinking about how that eye is going to be viewing the image, and I'll show you after what I mean about this line that we're kind of looking at. So let's encourage the eye to be pulled into the fish there, into the center point. So we might actually want to darken some of this area here to emphasize that in a minute. I want to emphasize that and this area here, and this here I think would help as well if we just pull this in, because we're just directing where we want that attention to go, back into the fish there. That's it. So let's come to the dark areas now. This is going to give us our stage at which we can then really darken areas. So if we darken an area, it's going to stop the eye, and if we brighten an area, it's going to let the eye continue. So let's just drop this opacity a little bit. So I'm going to work on the most important part, which is the end part here first. So I'm going to darken these here, just so that them brighter areas stand out more. Darkening them areas there. So this is going to stop the eye. Let's darken this areas up here. So around there, around here, let's darken down here, let's darken down there. That's just going to really fill out that whole face then. Okay, so then darkening these sections here, you can see what that's going to do. This is a really bad edit, by the way, but it's just giving you the idea. So let's just darken these areas here. So what I might actually do is just go over some of that in the back there, just to pull the eye down here. So you've just got to try and think logically with it, where you want that eye to be. So here, I said earlier, I might just darken these here. So I'm going to make the brush bigger, going to go over that area there, just to darken and pull that eye in. Same down here, there, down here. Okay, let's just zoom in a little bit, and let's just darken these areas here. Okay, so let's go back to the light area now, and let's just bring out a few more of them highlights that we've already done, because once you've gone over the dark areas, you can then just quickly go over some of these other areas, and you can see it just makes them pop a little bit. So sometimes we can just go too much with the darks. That's it. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just click on down here and add a new layer. You don't need to do this, but I'm just going to show it for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to select a red. So the idea is then is that we're going to come to here. This is our focal point here. Okay, and then what's going to happen is our eye is going to be brought into here. Okay, and these parts here are secondary. These areas here are almost directing the eye back. Now we could actually, and I probably will, just lighten them bits there a little bit more. This is fine, but it's going off, but that's okay. So we can kind of see now, actually there's areas on there that we need to lighten a little bit more, don't we? So you can use that as a really good way of just fine-tuning these lines of where you want the eye to be. So I've just cranked up the flow a little bit, and I'm going to just go over some of these areas here. In fact, I'm going to push that up quite up to 100% this time. And don't forget, you can change the curve as well. You can come back in here, look, and we can change this, so we can really think about what we're doing and just get exactly what we want. So let's bring this layer back in. There we go. So I wanted to, oh, wrong layer. So I wanted to highlight this area a little bit more, didn't I? Do that. That's it. So let's bring this back in. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I'm just going to lighten that. Okay, let's have a look at the other fish. I think actually that's okay. I'm just going to do a couple of areas. So if we look at this layer here with a brush, so these lines continue out a journey across there. These help bring it in down there. These are helping the eye come back in. Up here, down here looks a little bit dodgy. That would need some more work. And then there. So what we're getting is that flow. So that would be our flow. Okay, so let me just get rid of that layer there. So come back to the lights. The darks. So down here, I would probably darken just these edges here, just to add some contrast, and maybe down there as well. Okay, so you can take your time with it. You can really play around, use adding that other layer there just to really help think about what you're doing. So now you've done that, you can group these together. You don't have to, but you can group them together. Use the Shift key, click on the light and the dark there, press Control Command G to group them. That then gives you your highlights and shadows, so your dodge and burn, so to speak. So this hue and saturation layer, we don't need it anymore. We can either just get rid of the eye, or we can get rid of it. We can delete it. We can just delete it like that. So this is the before, and this is the after. So you can see what that is doing. That contrast difference is unreal, isn't it? It's really making the colors pop, but it's nothing to do with the color. It's to do with tone. So our depth perception is colorblind. This is giving your image more contrast, it's giving it more depth, and at the same time we're directing that viewer's eye. You can see where these highlights are. It's just flowing a lot better now. So I hope that's helped. I hope you enjoyed that. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.